So what is your role, and what do you bring to the dig?
Well, obviously my primary role is looking at the pottery, identifying it and dating it, which is the bedrock of any archaeological excavation.
Yeah.
You've got to date stuff, and the pottery is the primary dating material. But pottery can provide you with other information as well, functional information, what certain areas of the site might have been used for, and even sometimes social information. And you can get information on trade, for instance. One of the most interesting finds we've got from here is a couple of sherds of Ipswich ware, which is Middle Saxon pottery, which was made in Ipswich in Suffolk. And the 2 sherds from Berkeley are the most westerly ever found in Britain. So, that shows the sort of wealth and status of Berkeley in the Middle Saxon period, and it was attracting trade from such a distance.
What have you most enjoyed doing at Berkeley?
What, the stuff that's repeatable on camera? I love coming over for the social crack, because I've known Stuart a long time, I've known Emily a long time, and I've known Sean a long time, so it's meeting up with old mates anyway, so it's for a few beers. But I always enjoy student excavations. They're very different to obviously a lot of commercial archaeology. The atmosphere is very different, and it's just an all-round enjoyable experience really, and it's a really, really interesting site, of course, which helps as well.
What type of pottery is most prevalent at Berkeley, would you say?
It depends which period you're dealing with, but the pottery in this part of the world is fairly straightforward. A lot of it comes from around the Bristol area, for instance, but there's stuff coming down from Gloucestershire as well. So round about the time of the Norman Conquest, we have these, we call them Cotswolds wares. We don't know exactly where they were made, but we can tell by the geology of the pottery roughly where they were made. Then the Bristol wares start coming in the 12th century, but the Cotswolds wares carry on. Then once we get to the late medieval period, most of the pottery is coming down from Malverns. It was made up in the Malvern Hills itself, so it shifts around, but it's reasonably straightforward. There's only maybe half a dozen different types of pottery in the main use. Though we do get French imports and things like that, little bits of German pottery, so there's always stuff to keep an eye out for.
What would you say are the basics of pottery analysis?
Basics of pottery analysis. You've got to look at lots and lots of pottery. I was playing around with the databases on my computer a couple of years ago and added them up, and I've looked at something like 3 million sherds of pottery in the last 30 years. And there's no substitute for it really. You can read all the books you like, but you've got to handle the stuff and look at the stuff and get to know it. It's a little bit like bird watching. Once you've seen a robin, you know what a robin looks like, but not every brown bird with a red breast is a robin. It might be a bullfinch, so you've got to go and look at a bullfinch as well. And it's exactly the same principle as that, and it's just accumulating knowledge really. There's no substitute for it.
So how important would you say pottery is to the archaeological understanding?
Well, Wheeler once said to a friend of mine, whoever understands the pottery understands the site, which I think is not unreasonable, because as I said earlier, it's not just about dating. It gives you information about function, about trade, even in some places, in some periods, about things like belief systems and social activity, and you find lots of it, usually. It depends whereabouts you are in the country. Not everywhere in the country used pottery all the time. For instance, this part of the world, they didn't really use pottery in the early Saxon period. It's really, really rare. Ditto the Middle Saxon. Once you get to around the time of the Norman Conquest, it starts to become common again. So it's all there if you know what you're looking at.
Why did you become a pottery expert?
To get out of digging in winter. Really, seriously. I dug through 2 winters, and I had my Damascene moment in February of 1983. I was lying full length on the ground, cleaning the nose bones of a Roman skeleton in a blizzard with a dental probe, and the snow kept banking up, and I had to keep getting up and sweeping the snow and stop myself from getting buried. I thought, I really don't want to dig through another winter. I've had enough of this. And a few months later, a pottery trainee job came up in Ipswich, and I applied for it and got it. And I'm glad to say I've never dug outside in winter since.
So what is it that you like about pottery?
Well, I find pots just intrinsically pleasing things anyway. I just like pots, But there is, as I say, there's more. I mean, with risk of sounding snobbish, a lot of archaeologists, I think, field archaeologists don't seem to realise just the amount of information you can get out of pottery if you've got enough of it and the right types. And it really can give you a view of the site that nobody else who's working on the site has, until obviously you write it up and publish it. And so it's just a different way of coming into a site. There's lots of different ways of coming into a site, and pottery is just one of them. And it involves me sitting in my office drinking tea in the winter, so I'm there really.
Okay, and lastly, what is your favourite thing about archaeology?
My favourite thing about archaeology was better than working for a living, certainly. I just love being in touch with the past. I don't know, it's one of those things, it's really difficult to articulate, I suppose, but from the age of about 7 or 8, I was just fascinated by the past. Like old castles, I started, as I'm sure a lot of archaeologists did, as a kid going around old castles with my dad. And then we went on a dig when we were on holiday in Yorkshire when I was about 14, and I was just hooked. And I can't imagine ever having to do anything else for a living. Hopefully I won't have to.